bad ideas, and again, this ugly streak,
Well, you look
ugly streak of anti-Semitism.
Who's the most popular politician on the left?
AOC? I don't know.
One of, but who's, Bernie is,
Bernie, yeah.
Bernie is, I mean, he's not a capitalist, you know?
No, he's not, and he's also not president.
He's not, but
never would be.
But neither is Mamdani.
No, but he will, trust me, he will be featured in the campaign commercials.
But they're going to feature people, they boogeyman everybody.
Yeah, but you don't have to boogeyman him. He does it to himself.
BillMaher is back with another hard-hitting critique, this time aimed squarely at the Democrats and one of their rising stars, Zohran Mamdani. In his latest monologue, Maher breaks down what he sees as growing fractures within the DNC, arguing that the party's current direction and Mamdani's brand of democratic socialism could spell serious trouble for its future. That it's a blunt, thought-provoking look at where American politics may be heading next. Buckle up. This one's worth paying attention to.
That there are two pillars that this country is founded on. One is democracy, and one is capitalism, free markets. And it seems like one party wants to get rid of one, and the other party wants to get rid of the other, right? The Republicans are not that, democracy is just not number one on their list. It just isn't. It isn't. It's behind Christianity and a few other things. And the Democrats, I mean, I read these 74% are for democratic socialism. Only 16% favor capitalism. Is this going to be a country that I don't recognize in 5 to 10 years if we don't have these two pillars?
Let's get one thing straight. It's not that Republicans are opposed to democracy. They're demanding fairness. For years, they've watched left-leaning media outlets and their supporters launch relentless attacks, particularly against former President Donald Trump. From shaky allegations to sensationalized headlines, the strategy has often seemed aimed at shaping public perception and painting the Republican Party as fundamentally illegitimate. These constant attacks haven't just hurt political discourse. They've eroded trust in the media and widened the divide between Americans. So the real question becomes, if false narratives and misinformation have caused this much damage, isn't it reasonable to hold those responsible accountable? Democracy doesn't survive on distortion and bias. It thrives on truth, transparency, and equal treatment under the law.
I mean, where are the Democrats going with this? If Mamdani is the face of the Democrats on the East Coast and Katie Porter is the face on the West Coast, I don't know if that's great politically for that party.
BillMaher is asking some legitimate questions here. Both Zohran Mamdani and Katie Porter are rising figures within the Democratic Party, and their policy positions have sparked intense debate about where the country is headed. Mamdani, a self-described democratic socialist, pushes for rent freezes, government-run grocery stores, free public transit, and higher taxes on large corporations and the wealthy. To supporters, it sounds idealistic and compassionate. In practice, it represents an economy driven heavily by government control. Porter, meanwhile, argues that transgender-identifying men should be allowed to compete in women's sports, an issue she frames around inclusion and equality. Critics argue it undermines fairness and biological reality. On the surface, both politicians present themselves as champions of progress and justice. But beneath the optimistic rhetoric lies a tougher reality, one that raises serious questions about economic sustainability, competitive fairness, and how to balance compassion with practicality when shaping America's future.
Is New York. It's definitely it's the media capital, the financial capital. It is a bellwether like no other city is in this country. So don't tell me that who the mayor of New York is doesn't matter.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second. Do you think, let's say, on the seize the means of production, do you think that the mayor, that one person, if he is a democratic socialist, do you think that he would have the power and influence to be able to, usher in socialism?
He definitely has the power and influence to elect J.D. Vance or whoever is the Republican candidate next time. It is a walking commercial for the Republican Party nationally.
I think the Republicans are going to...
When you let the Democrats, socialists, and now they're actually calling themselves socialists, when you let them take over a major American city, this is what you get. The state-run grocery stores, which work so well in Cuba and the Soviet Union and Venezuela.
Did you catch what Maher said at the very beginning? He argued that electing someone like Zohran Mamdani would practically hand the presidency to J.D. Vance, or whichever candidate the GOP puts forward. And honestly, he's not wrong. A lot of voters understand the real-world consequences of moving too close to socialism, and they're not willing to gamble the country's future on ideological experiments. America's political pendulum swings quickly. When the left pushes too far in one direction, the right gains momentum in response. Maher's argument is straightforward but cutting. If Democrats rally behind figures like Mandani, whose policies lean heavily toward socialist ideals, they risk alienating moderates and independents, the very voters who decide national elections. In that scenario, 2028 could become an easy win for the GOP. Mandani's rise isn't just a New York-based phenomenon. It's a warning sign for the entire Democratic Party.
Ideas, and again, this ugly streak, streak of anti-Semitism.
Who's the most popular politician on the left?
AOC? I don't know.
One of, but who's, Bernie is, Bernie is, I mean, he's not a capitalist,
No, he's not, and he's also not president.
He's not, but
never would be.
But neither is Mamdani.
No, but he will, trust me, he will be featured in the campaign commercials.
But they're going to feature people, they boogeyman everybody.
Yeah, but you don't have to boogeyman him. He does it to himself.
Exactly. Zoran Mandani has ultimately become his own worst enemy. His vision of a socialist-leaning state may sound appealing on paper, promising fairness, equity, and government support for all. But in reality, it raises serious concerns about personal freedom, economic stability, and the massive cost required to sustain such policies. And it's not just the ideology. Mandani has also faced significant backlash for his outspoken positions on Israel and a series of controversial posts that have sharply polarized voters. While those statements may energize a small, highly ideological base, they alienate a much larger portion of the electorate who see his rhetoric as divisive and disconnected from mainstream priorities. In today's political climate, perception can make or break a candidate, and Mandani's messaging often overshadows whatever good intentions he may have. To many Americans, his ideas feel too radical, too risky, and too far removed from the practical realities of governing. That makes his path to national leadership not just unlikely, but nearly impossible.
But they'll do it regardless. Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Gavin Newsom. Yeah, but they make anybody into boogeyman. I think it was
just have more weight when it's real. I mean, when you can really.
What's ironic is that the very people this liberal keeps citing as victims of conservative criticism largely damage their own reputations without anyone's help. Take Gavin Newsom, for example. His downfall wasn't the result of some right-wing smear campaign. It was the product of his own failed leadership during the devastating Palisades fires in California. He appeared completely unprepared, with an inadequate number of fire crews. And to make things worse, water that could have protected homes and lives was redirected to preserve fish habitats. Then there's Nancy Pelosi. She didn't need a political opponent to tarnish her credibility. She did that herself when reports surfaced alleging she profited millions through insider trading. The pattern speaks for itself, but it's almost laughable that the liberal elite keep insisting they're being unfairly targeted or misrepresented. In reality, their own questionable decisions and misplaced priorities paint a clearer, more damaging picture than any critic ever could.
Horrible for a guy like you, who you spent your whole life talking about how government tries to do too much, which it does, and spends too much. And here you have Trump, who is the Republican, who is aggrandizing more power than anybody, as we just talked about. And on the other side, you have the guy running in New York, Mandani, right? Okay, who's like a straight-up communist. I mean, he is. He talks about, the things that communists say. I mean, he wants free grocery stores, free buses.
I want him to win.
You want him to win?
Yeah.
Zoran Mandani may resonate with younger Democratic voters, but much of that support is driven by idealism rather than understanding. Many of these voters haven't lived through, or even seriously studied, the harsh realities of communism. To them, it sounds like a utopia, equality for everyone, wealth distributed fairly, power returned to the people. On paper, it's a beautiful dream. In reality, history paints a very different picture, one defined by economic collapse, government repression, and a sweeping loss of personal freedom. From the Soviet Union to Cuba to Venezuela, nations have tried this model again and again, and the results are consistently disastrous. Yet the appeal lingers among young people who view it as a compassionate alternative to capitalism. What they fail to see is that behind the rhetoric of fairness and equality lies a system built on control, censorship, and the crushing of individual ambition. the very freedoms democracy is designed to protect.
20 years or so.
Wait.
We need every 20 years or so, we need a conspicuous, confined experiment with socialism so we can crack it up again. Socialist slogan used to be, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. The new socialist slogan is, trust us, this time it won't be a mess.
Exactly. History has repeatedly shown that socialism fails far more often than it succeeds. Yet many young Democrats seem eager to try it again, as if their version will finally be the one that works. But we don't need to repeat past mistakes to learn from them. The evidence is already written across decades of economic collapse and social turmoil in nations that adopted socialist systems. The pattern never changes. Grand promises of equality and fairness eventually give way to shortages, censorship, restricted freedoms, and a weakened economy. Instead of repeating these failures, we should learn from them and recognize that while capitalism isn't perfect, it still fuels innovation, personal choice, and upward mobility. Values socialism has consistently suppressed. And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.